大家好，我是 Hanifa， 来自新加坡，精通双语的演说家。Hi, my name is Hanifa. Today I'm going to do a webinar online on how to conduct productive meetings. This is a success leadership series from Toastmasters International. A bit about my background. I joined Toastmasters International in 2015. I serve my club, which is Singapore Chinese Chamber of Commerce and Industry Mandarin Toastmasters Club, from 2016 to 2019. Firstly was a vice president of membership, and then later on as the president and also as the immediate past president. I also serve as the club coach at Singapore Spirit Mind, Singapore Mandarin Toastmasters Club. You may be wondering why I am doing Chinese, because I actually can speak Mandarin. So in that period that I serve Mandarin speakers and as the leader, I learned to communicate and work with all Chinese speaking members of Toastmasters. Now, what I'm going to present to you may not just apply in Toastmasters club. It also can help you in your work with in your company, in your corporate, and as well as the clubs that you are representing or you're a member of. Presently, I am the member of Jauhari Bilingual Toastmasters Club, where they do English and Malay. Okay, so we are quite here able to learn many languages here in Singapore, so I'm very excited. So today I am going to present this Success Leadership series on this topic, and mostly based on my leadership experience in Toastmasters. So why do we have meetings? Purpose and objective of meetings. Meetings can be seen as for both the team as well as for an individual. The team, maybe we're talking about stimulating, clarifying, and also to resolve conflicts, right? So it allows the team to brainstorm ideas, stimulate action, establish relationship, and also maintain, motivate them to stay productive. For the individual, it is an opportunity for them to build or hone their leadership skills. And I suggest that in the speaking world, we not only learn how to communicate and perform speeches, but we also need to be able to explain and express ourselves in a closely and small group sessions, like a meeting. So we normally have speeches on a platform, but in a meeting, we only have a group of people to work with. So that's quite intimate and quite personal. So that would help an individual to improve themselves. So you also encourage openness and stimulate some actions, meaning that when we want meetings, what we want the outcome is for people to go out of meeting and start taking action. So when we are having meetings, just bear in mind the purpose is not just for us to just talk and discuss, but also to later on take action based on what has been discussed. So today's speech will cover planning, announcing, starting, handling, and concluding the meeting. In planning a meeting, there's always someone who wants to hold a meeting, and usually in a club situation, it can be the organizer or the president. So to start planning the meeting, you need to do these few things. One is know why you are meeting, what is the meeting for, when it's going to happen, who is the meeting with, and how you're going to conduct the meeting. So I'm going to go through one at a time. Why? We do not have to write many why we want a meeting, but as soon as we are ready to plan a meeting, write down at least three items why you want to hold the meeting. Now, 3 items is more than enough. If you have more than 3, make sure the most important one stays on top, 1, 2, and 3. What is the meeting about? Is generally to establish general outcome and expectation. Okay, make sure it is written down in your agenda. Serve the people that you want to serve the meeting to, the people that you are actually going to offer help to, support, and also get consensus from. So when is going to be the meeting? So plan ahead, set a date, find out where you can find a good venue, and speak to your team leaders. Team leaders are there to help you communicate your information or disseminate information to others. So you do not have to be the only one to do the broadcast. And when you invite the committee members into your meeting, allow yourself some time ahead of time to inform them. Who are you going to invite? List down the names of the people or organizations to include. How? Announce and invite via email, text messages, and group calls. This is very important. Many people do the announcement and invite via email and expect the parties at the receiving end to have read your announcement or your invitation. Actually, that's not the case, because they may be too busy, or they may have other things other important things that they are attending to, and therefore they may miss out your information announcement. So make sure you have a group call, or call them in your group, and you have a group chat. That's better. Inform them, make sure they hear your voice, make sure they understand. Use videos, because now is a good time for you to start using videos and text messages. Scenario A, in this case, planning a meeting, I have in this slide, I have set up an example on how a meeting should be held. Okay, you can convene a meeting for scenario A and scenario B. I'm not going to read it now, because we will do it at the end of this video, maybe in the next few minutes when I complete, so you can have an idea of how you can build, or rather plan a meeting based on these scenarios. Next, we're going to talk about announcing your meeting. Now, if you are announcing to have a meeting, well, be ready. You have your phone, you have email, you need to prepare them. Okay, make sure you're online to be able to make the announcement. And when you invite the relevant parties of the meeting, have their names ready, email information, and have a subject line ready. Date, time, and venue. Now, in some cases, you may not have an ideal date or time to meet, yet out of maybe 10, 7 can attend. So you need to serve the majority. If it's a very important meeting, crucial for you to have a meeting, go ahead with the meeting anyway, and let the 3 persons who can't join you to stay up to date at the end of your meeting. Okay, venue. In a Toastmasters club, usually we have an issue of where we're going to hold the meeting, because, well, frankly, we depend on a venue that is provided to us for free. So they have meetings that have been done in cafeteria. There are meetings that are done in online. So how you want to have your meeting, or where you want to have meeting is very important. Make sure everybody is aware. Meeting agenda is also something missing in most cases, that people come in knowing that, oh, we're going to talk about this, about the competition, but there's no agenda. What do you want to talk about for the competition? List it down, 1, 2, 3. Sometimes the meeting is only talking about competition timer, right? As simple as it is, but make sure it is written down so people understand, and when you convene the meeting, when you start the meeting, people can follow the agenda. Number 4 is email and text correspondences, and 5, response management. They come together. When you send out email, you make the announcement, make sure you have response, make sure you understand that, make sure people respond to you via email or text to say, I'm coming, I'm committed, or I'm not available. Having done that, meaning that you are now able to, before you attend the meeting, you already have an idea of who will be attending, right? If the response is, no, I can't make it, then perhaps you can ask them why, and perhaps they can answer for a reason, or maybe they are available after that, or in the middle of the meeting, they want to come. Just have an idea of whether they are available for the time that you have already planned to have. Now starting the meeting, now you're ready to go. Now prepare and print. Of course, if you are technology savvy and you are dependent on a handphone, make sure everybody has a PDF format of your agenda and print it out. It's probably the best way to get people have, paper in hand, touch, to see and make notes about the meeting and have your writing materials ready. Seating arrangement in the meeting room. Well, in this case, sometimes we don't need to have a meeting in like a formal setting like this one. We can have a meeting that is quite informal like this one, right? So when it's informal, what do? You can generally have a meeting that involve everyone sitting around in a room, okay? And, prepare some refreshment if you like, some drinks, and make sure you start on time. Why? Because you want to be able to show that your meeting is that you want to get things done. You want to get ahead. You want everyone to be aware of that this meeting is going to help them get their work done. So next is have start light conversation. It doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be too detailed. Just get everyone involved, okay? And before you actually start talking about your purpose, of meeting, bring them up to date. Bring the attendees up to date of what's going on. Everybody's coming from different departments. Everybody is doing something different, meeting or working on different agenda. So bring them up to date on what's going on. If there is a common project that people are working with, bring it out, state the situation, or state the problem that you state the purpose of why you have the meeting. Now, introducing the problem or situation. Now, meetings doesn't have to be convened because you have a problem. It can be convened because you're in the process of finishing a project and you have a situation that need everybody involvement and get them to take action. So don't think of meeting as a way of solving conflicts or resolve issues. You can always have a meeting because there's a project to work on. Okay, so next thing is handling a meeting. Now this is very interesting because as a leader, you always will have to learn how to communicate with people from different backgrounds, different mindset, different ways of thinking, and different behavior patterns of working. So what do? You need to be able to know how to handle them. So my suggestion is to, when you are already in a meeting and you need to speak to your colleagues, to speak to your committee members, always use a reference I. It doesn't matter whether you're president, it doesn't matter what level of office you are, then always be able to start with a first person reference. So be caring, be firm, use words such as I'm here to discuss, listen, resolve, assess, offer, support, serve, and help. Right? If you're referring to somebody on the left or the right and someone in your office bearer, use the name. Name so and so, and then get them to be involved in the conversation. Now, secondly, be consensual and tactful. Consensual meaning that if everyone agrees but only one person does not, then you need to have consensus why that person needs to vote. You need to ask that person that I would like to hear what you think, because let that flow, let the conversation go to a point where the person understands why the rest of the group agree to a certain matter. Okay, if they choose to disagree, if that person really want to disagree, speak again. Now there are times when in a meeting conflict arises, meaning conflict of because communication or the idea doesn't flow and therefore they don't understand. So perhaps you might want to take a break. Take a 5 minute, 10 minutes break, go outside, and during that during the break, speak to them in private. Ask them caringly, yet tactfully. Okay, why do you say that? Why is it not important to you and the rest of us think that it's important? Ask their viewpoints and have an idea, and perhaps not to persuade but to understand where they're coming from. And do this in private. I have attended meetings where when that conflict arises in a particular meeting, people just barge in and speak at that level where it can be annoying and frustrating, and as well as embarrassing for the person. So do it tactfully, be professional. Of course, not everything can be resolved immediately, but if you can, okay, get everyone participation and cooperation to hear this person out, to understand why they disagree on a certain matter. And if it comes to a point where they can't even resolve it at that point, okay, you can do one thing, is you can let the matter rest. There's always another way to resolve, meaning you can meet another time. You can't have everyone agree with you in every issue. But if the issue is consensus, if everybody understands where you're coming from, you can still take action. You can still go ahead with your plan. So how do you address people who wants to come in and give them space to speak? You can use these words. I would like to hear your input, your suggestions, your feedback, your problems. I would like to have your participation, and I'd like to hear what your needs are. These are consensual and tactful way of speaking to your audience. Now, be poised. We're not talking about speaking from the stage. Poise meaning you're always seated or you stand firm, okay? Not to use your voice in an authoritative manner. Be able to communicate it in a tone that people can listen. You don't have to shout. You don't have to speak at your speak loudly. You can speak enough for people to listen to you, because now you are face to face. Everyone is seated together. You're not on a stage. Be friendly and humorous. Prepare some few things. Perhaps someone says something and you get to know them better already and say, oh, how have you been? And say something nice about the person before you make a comment about an issue. Because sometimes when you're lighthearted enough, people start to agree with you more. And be impartial. There's no need for you to show that you prefer working with someone else, with someone compared to another person, because we're working in a team, we're working together. So being impartial means you need to take a stand. And that stand does not have to be the stand of a person, but has to be based on your purpose and objective. So if you have a goal to reach, you want to reach an outcome, make sure you know where you're coming from. Your agenda will spell out exactly what you have intended this meeting for. Be attentive and always listen. Now, in a situation where you have people who may not have, the command of English is not that good, or they need some explanation, okay? Explain again. Be aware that how you explain may also affect the way they receive. And if they're not being by expressing in words may not get to them, then you need to write down the minutes. So in this case, the secretary definitely will have to prepare minutes of the meeting. Okay? Listening is very important. It's not when we are the person who organized the meeting, we lead the chair of the meeting, we don't have to speak much. We listen more. We hear the input, we hear the suggestion, we hear the contributions before we make a comment, or before we pass a decision, right? So decision can be made together, or decision can be made by the president. So therefore be attentive and listen carefully to what others have to say. Earlier on, I said that there can be conflict arising as a result of holding the meeting because people do not agree with your ideas, or you're trying to resolve something. And in the middle of that, make sure you have a break, speak to them privately, and let them come in. Talk in private, meaning that do not embarrass, do not make the meeting a bit more awkward than don't make the person feel awkward, and also not make your job a bit even harder, because then everyone will be looking at just the two of you or the two people who are in conflict during this meeting. So share the responsibility. Know that you are not alone. Be able to delegate. Learn to share the responsibility, that someone else can do a better job at communicating information to others. Then let them do it. Allow them the opportunity to think that they are part of the opportunity to be working with you. Agree to resolve issues. When you present your viewpoint, use active words, action words like talk, share, decide in an unemotional way. So you're not being biased. Unemotional means there's no you don't feel sad or happy about it. But of course, if it's something that excites you, that helps to grow, to motivate the team, you can add in some energy into those and energy into your speech. And determine points of agreement and disagreement. Know exactly which areas that you need to resolve again or need to discuss again. And decide how to proceed on disagreements. Decide, meaning everyone needs to understand that if something is not agreed upon, then what can we do? And everyone listen. Everyone has a way to get hold of, or rather have the information. Next is summarize the discussion in writing and move forward. Now, concluding the meeting, keep to the time of the agenda. There are times when, because we don't have an agenda, we didn't write the purpose and objective, then we may end up having more than an hour's of a meeting instead of just that 1 hour allotted. Keep to the time, meaning that if we have 3 agendas, split into 10 minutes or 15 minutes and complete it within that time given, just like when we are speaking. Now restate the objective and purpose, summarize it, and make sure everyone's looking at you, looking at the paper or listening to you when you restate the objective and purpose, because you're not going to have the same objective and purpose. If the next time you have this meeting, it should be, the action should already been taken before you have the next meeting. Review the issues, problems, and situations. Review meaning that you can bring it back, you can explain again why you meet during your introduction, telling them about the problem, the issues at hand. Now check with the secretary about the minutes. Are the minutes complete? Are we able now to send to them and email to them who are the relevant parties that need to take action? State the agreement and conclusion. State agreement, not disagreement. Things that are disagreed upon need to have to be discussed during the meeting. Once we agree, then you have to state the agreement and conclude accordingly. Provide forwarding contact details. Whoever are in the action plan needs to have their contact information down on paper in the minutes, because that way everyone is able to get in touch and work can take place. And thank the attendees. The job of the president at this moment is to help the committee members and executives to understand that after this meeting, their work can be done more smoothly and more effectively. So having to review, restate, and give them the agreement, points of agreement, allows them to have be comfortable about going out there and get things done. Be the last person to leave the room if you like. Don't be the first person to just dash off because you have another meeting to attend. However, if you do have to be in a hurry to leave, delegate it to someone to be the last person to leave. Or delegate it to the meeting. Be the last person to leave. As a leader, it's important to thank each and every person who has attended the meeting. You may want to meet the same person who had a conflict earlier on, again in private, and see if they now feel better about what's been discussed. And also, assure them that you're always there to support, to provide help. Let's go back to the beginning of the webinar where I mentioned 2 scenarios that would allow you to probably have a practice of how you can start to plan a meeting. So let's pull that out now. Planning a meeting. Now remember, in planning a meeting, there are only a few steps that you need to understand. They are basically the 4W and 1H. Why? State the purpose. What? Service before success. You're there to serve the team and the club. Then when? Plan ahead, set a date, and who you are going to invite and how. Okay, so all this is planning a meeting. So let's look at the scenarios, the 2 scenarios here that I have mentioned, and these are scenarios that has happened before during my term as a president and also in my work. So scenario A, the president of the club received a letter from the host of the venue where chapter meetings are held. The building will undergo renovation and the club must therefore decide whether to relocate or temporarily suspend meetings until the renovation works are completed. The club's president decides to hold a meeting with the executive committee, write an effective objective and purpose of the meeting. So have a look at there are 3 parties involved: the president, the club, the host of the club, which is the building manager, and the committee members. So this warrants a meeting. So upon knowing that a meeting is required, you need to now start planning. In scenario B, your company's principal shareholder wants to expand the establishment and wants to find a bigger office within the next 3 months. As the managing director of the company, you decide to hold a meeting with the business development manager and his department to discuss plans about this expansion. Write an effective objective and purpose of the meeting. So you see, at least 3 or 4 parties are involved. When there are 3 or 4 parties involved in a group, then you need to hold a meeting. Now, of course, meeting can also be informal with one other member. But those kind of meetings is probably one-on-one meeting. You can have 1 or 4 meeting. But in any case, when we want to plan a meeting, you can just follow these steps. Okay, so this is a scenario of the 2 scenarios that you can now work with. What I'm going to show you is how I plan my meeting in my club when I was the president. So let's pull out here, okay, 2017. What I'm showing you right now is the group chat of the executive committee for 2017-2018 executive member in the SCCCI Mandarin Toastmasters Club. And before we plan a meeting, or rather when we plan a meeting, we have to bring them up to date on what's going on right here, bring it up to date. Well, some of you do not understand Chinese or read Chinese, so I'm just going to explain to you. We bring up to date right here and then explain that we're going to have a meeting soon. On what date? Usually when we write the date, it's good to have a good practice is to write the day of, So there's the date and the day And what is the meeting about? 3-prong, objective and purpose. 1, 2, 3. You can also suggest 3 dates. Suggest the dates that you want this meeting to be held. And upon your message, you expect responses from the members. So the 2 responses here, that I can make it or cannot make it, right? So you have an understanding with each other that has been read. And of course in WhatsApp it's good because you can click and see whether this message has been received or who has read your message. So you can click there here, go to message info, and you know that everyone here has read your message. Okay, read by whom at what time. So that's a good way to also monitor whether your message has been read by your team. Another way is you can here make a copy of your message that you've sent by email. 抄送电邮. Send it to the group and then send it again on this chat room. Yeah. So this is how you communicate with your team. You can call, you can send a message, announce them. At the same time, you need to put in any other places where your group members working together in a chat group. Okay. So what I want you to do now is make a evaluation of this exercise. What I would like you to do now is, again, plan a meeting. It's easy to work alone. So based on the 2 scenarios, plan your meeting. What you to do is to be able to evaluate what you've done. Now, working groups of 4 to 5 persons, well, in this case, because you're planning and working alone, then plan by yourself first and invite 2 or 3 people to work with you. Lead the discussion about 10 to 20 minutes, and based on the scenario that is given, evaluate what you've done. Plan and evaluate the planning and evaluate the announcement. Did you do all the steps? I find the most important part is still planning. The most important areas that we need to remember is that if we don't plan, we are planned to fail, because we are involving a lot of people in the team. The bigger the team, the more opportunities for you to work, to communicate. So when communication gets to a point where you have so many subjects to talk about, so many topics to talk about, then we need to actually itemize each and every one and only discuss what's important. So today we've covered planning, announcing, starting, handling, concluding, and lastly, I'd like you to evaluate. Evaluate what you've done by having a discussion. Evaluate as an observer, evaluate as a leader, evaluate as a speaker. Because evaluation allows you to see what you've done well and what you can improve on. Generally, the more practice you have, the better you get. And the more you understand how to plan your meeting and organize and set up meetings, the better you become. Let's look at some of the frequently asked questions about holding meetings. What if someone is dominating the meeting? The best you can do is be assertive and use phrases such as, I think we should hear from some other attendees, or can we have some comments from the rest of the group on this? You may want to ask your secretary or vice president to list names of individuals as they raise their hands to speak, so that you can call on them in order. A good ground rule is that everyone who wants to speak gets a chance to speak once before someone gets a second turn. Secondly, what if you are stuck on a particular topic? Take control and suggest another meeting to discuss the issue at a later date, or suggest that the concerned parties continue the discussion at the end of the meeting. Sometimes it will be necessary to call for a decision, then move on to the next topic. Next question. What if I feel like I'm being the bad guy? Am I guilty? But do remember that your role and responsibility to be fair and efficient and to keep the meeting on target. At times, this requires for you to be firm. And how often do you need to have a meeting? If you do not have a reason to meet, do not set up a meeting. However, be sure to check your bylaws for a minimum number of meetings that must be held. What if there are no responses? Well, it's good if you can, in the beginning of your leadership term, is to have regular meetings at least once a week. This is to help you get to know the team members and for the team members to understand where you're coming from and how you want to lead them. Gradually, you can move into bi-weekly. As often as you can, get in touch with them even in private, understand the background. COVID-19 situation has taught us a great lesson that we do have to give ourselves space. We have to give others space. And space meaning that we can work from home. We can have the convenience of now the mobile phones, the internet, Wi-Fi connection. Make use of the technology that has already prepared for us